Welcome to Biology My Passion. I am Soumya Harikrishna. We started learning the lesson Life Processes. In the previous videos, we discussed autotrophic nutrition. Today, we are going to learn about heterotrophic nutrition. As I said previously, please keep your notebook or a paper with pen. You can take down the notes along with me. I will be writing all the points on the board. You can copy down exactly for your reference. Heterotrophic nutrition can be of three types. First, saprophytic nutrition, or we can say saprotroph. Trophism means nutrition. So saprotrophs are the saprophytic organisms. Then holozoic nutrition and parasitic nutrition. So what do you mean by saprophytic nutrition or saprotrophic nutrition? Here, break down the food outside the body and then absorb it. For example, fungi. We have to understand one thing. For breaking down the food into simple substances, enzymes are required. They are called a biological catalyst. What are enzymes? They are nothing but some proteins. So these enzymes are secreted outside the body into the food material. Then break down them. Once it becomes simpler substances, they absorb it. Because their body design is very simple. They cannot have a complex digestive system inside. So if you throw a peel of banana outside, within 2-3 weeks you will find it disappearing. What is happening? These saprotrophic organisms are breaking them down. So we call them as decomposers also. So which are the examples of saprophytic organisms? Mainly fungi are the saprophytes. Fungi include bread mold or rhizopus which grow on the bread, then yeast that we use for baking, and mushroom. Now coming to holozoic, like in the case of human beings. We take the whole food material inside the body and digestion takes place within the body. Internal digestion. Here also we need enzymes, but we have all the enzymes within the body, right? So that type of nutrition is called a holozoic nutrition. The whole food is taken inside and digested. Third type is called a parasitic nutrition. So parasites, what do? They derive their nutrients from other organisms, maybe from plants or animals. Directly they derive nutrition, though they need not digest it. And by doing that, what are they doing? They are harming the other organism, host also, but still they don't kill them, because if they kill, their existence will be a question. So parasites derive nutrition from other plants or animals without killing them. So you need to study the examples of plant and animal parasites. Plant parasites examples are amarbel or cuscuta. Another example of a parasite, plant parasite, is orchid. The same way animals also have parasitic organisms living on some host. For example, ticks, then leech sucking blood of cattle and humans, then head louse and tapeworm which live in the intestine of the cattle or human beings. These are all examples of animal parasites. Now let us discuss the nutrition in unicellular organisms. We are familiar with amoeba as an example of unicellular organisms, right? Amoeba, when it comes in the vicinity of a food particle, will extend its body, that is cytoplasmic extension will form, that is called a pseudopodium. Pseudo means false, podium means leg or false foot, we can say, plural pseudopodia. Okay, so the pseudopodia will be extended and trapping the particle inside, it will close. So it is like all the sides, it's not that a two-dimensional like I am showing now. If the particle is inside, from all the sides the pseudopodia will come and envelop it. So now the food particle is trapped inside a food vacuum. Now what will the amoeba do? The enzymes will be secreted into the food vacuole. The food will get digested and the digested nutrients are then absorbed into the body of amoeba by the process of diffusion. So ultimately absorption is by diffusion. Now after using the nutrients, there are of course waste materials. So these waste materials will be brought near the cell surface and will be diffused out into the water. Okay, so when amoeba comes in the vicinity of a food particle, pseudopodia will be extended and the pseudopodia close or join to form a food vacuole trapping the food material inside. Then the food material is digested within the food vacuole and then absorb the digested nutrients and remove the waste material by diffusion through the cell surface. In case of amoeba, the food vacuole digests the food. So it is also called a temporary stomach. Okay. So why is food vacuole called temporary stomach? Because food vacuole is digesting the food particle within it. So it is called a temporary stomach. The process by which amoeba engulfs its food is called a endocytosis. Endo means within the body or inside, cytosis means cell. So within the cell. Now let us look at another example of unicellular organism, paramecium. So if you look at amoeba and paramecium, both are unicellular. But what is the difference? Amoeba does not have a definite shape. It keeps on changing its shape because it can extend its pseudopodia in any direction. So it doesn't have a fixed shape. Whereas paramecium has a definite shape with cilia all around its body. So it cannot capture food through any part of the body. So this, if you look at this, you can see the shape of a paramecium is somewhat like the sole of a slipper. So this is also called a slipper animalcule, just for your information. So here the food has to reach a particular part, that is this part, in order to capture. So how can it bring the food near that? Using the cilia. The cilia will sweep the food particle and bring it here. This opening is called the oral groove, or it is called a vestibulum or vestibule, which will push the food inside, which is called the buccal cavity, through which the mouth and it will come inside the body. From here it will be taken in and food particles are formed inside, or food vacuole is formed inside the cell. Now within the cell, the enzymes are there. Enzymes will digest the food and absorb. So in your level, you have to study that paramecium can take in food only at a definite part in their body. Now we will learn about the nutrition in human beings. Human beings are heterotrophic organisms, and having a complex body design, we have a well-defined system for digestion called digestive system. But we know digestion to happen, what is needed? Enzyme. So there are certain parts of the body which are responsible for secreting enzymes. Those are called glands. So we have digestive glands present in our digestive system to support digestion. At the same time, we have a long tube called the alimentary canal, which is running or starting from the mouth and opening at the other end called the anus. So it is called a complete digestive system because there are two openings. Because some lower organisms, they have only one opening through which the food enters and through which the waste materials will go out. That is incomplete. But for human beings, we have one end opening, mouth, the food enters through the mouth, and the other end opening is anus, food goes out through the anus. So it is called a complete tube or complete digestive system. Now, so digestive system has two parts, alimentary canal, which is only a tube, coiled tube with the digestive glands associated with it. So the alimentary canal has got different parts. Mouth. This opening is called a mouth, guarded by lips. That opening is called a mouth. Mouth leads into buccal cavity. So when you open your mouth, you are seeing a cavity that is called a buccal cavity or oral cavity. It has teeth and tongue inside. Both have got their own functions. Buccal cavity leads into pharynx, which is our throat region. It's actually a common opening for our mouth or the oral cavity, our nasal cavity, and from the ear eustachian tube also opens here. Okay, it's a common opening, the pharynx. From there, we have actually two tubes going down. In front, we have the windpipe or the trachea, through which it is the air passage, whereas behind we have the digestive tract or the alimentary canal continues. So that is leading into the food pipe or the esophagus. Then food pipe, we know that since both these are open, there is a chance that food may enter into the windpipe also. But that hardly happens because the trachea or the windpipe has the opening called a glottis. In that opening, there is a cartilaginous flap-like structure called a epiglottis, which is guarding the opening of the trachea. So when we are swallowing the food, That moment, the cartilaginous flap or the epiglottis will close the trachea or the windpipe, so that the food will go only into the food pipe or the esophagus. Now from there, food pipe, the food will enter into a muscular bag-shaped structure, which is a J-shaped structure called a stomach. Stomach is a small organ, but it can expand as and when it is receiving the food. Then the stomach will open into small intestine, which is a very long coiled structure, Then small intestine will lead into large intestine. But large intestine is shorter than small intestine. But why are we calling it large intestine? Because of the width. Okay. Then large intestine will lead into another structure called a rectum, where undigested food is stored temporarily, and it will be removed from our body through another opening or the final opening called the anus. So these are the parts of alimentary canal: mouth, buccal cavity or oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus or food pipe, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum and anus. Now to secrete the enzymes, we have the digestive glands. Out of these, the first three, that is salivary glands, liver and pancreas, these three glands are present from outside the alimentary canal. They are opening into the alimentary canal. They are major glands. Okay, they pour their secretion into the alimentary canal. Whereas these gastric glands and intestinal glands are present on the wall of the stomach and intestine. They are within the wall itself. It's not separate gland. So gastric gland has got certain glandular cells inside the stomach, whereas intestinal glands also have certain glandular cells within the intestinal wall. So these are the different glands associated with our digestive system for secreting different enzymes or secretions. Need not be always enzyme, secretion, that we will learn. Shall we practice a very simple diagram of digestive system now? We will draw the human digestive system now. So first we have to draw the man or a woman. So those who can manage to draw a face, you draw it. Otherwise, you can just start. I will show you. So from here, the mouth, the buccal cavity is opening, and the nasal cavity is also joining here. So this is the nasal cavity, oral cavity, both are joining together here, which is the pharynx. So if you cannot draw this face, you can just start like this. This is enough. Okay. Now this is pharynx. Pharynx will lead into esophagus. I am making it shorter because my board is small. Now it will open into a J-shaped organ. You have to draw like this, go a little up and come down. Then from here, there is actually a U-shaped structure. The beginning part of the small intestine is U-shaped. So once you reach here, then you can draw like this. The large intestine can be drawn like this. Okay, here this way, let it be there. Now we have to continue the small intestine from where we stopped. It was here. From where we stopped, from here. See, if you can manage to draw the coiled part like this, very properly, it's up to you. But if you find that difficult, there is another way of drawing it. You can just draw this way, simple way. Okay, small intestine. It is opening into large intestine. Don't close anywhere. Here only we are showing because it's crossing it. But here open, then a small finger-like structure is there, that is called an appendix or vermiform appendix, which is actually now known as a vestigial organ. Vestigial organ means it used to have function before, now it is not having any particular function. Now from here, the large intestine, then rectum and so all the parts are now complete. Now we have to draw the glands. Salivary gland we need not show. We will have to show the liver, which is a major gland. It is located here. my proportion of the diagram is not correct because of my limitation in space. Okay, that's why it is coming to the chest region. So here it is the liver. Here you will draw the pancreas. Pancreas is like this. If you are coloring your diagram, give yellow color to the pancreas. Now, there is a duct system coming from the liver. So there is a duct coming from the liver which will join with another duct from here. A small organelle is there. This organelle is called a gallbladder. Gallbladder is for storing the secretion of liver. We will come to that. So it will come down. So this is called a hepatic duct. And this is cystic duct. You need not remember these terms. In class 10 level, you don't require this. It will come and join with the pancreatic duct. And together, pancreatic duct as well as the duct from the liver will join and open together in the intestinal region. Okay. So these are the parts of human digestive system. So we will mark the parts. This is the mouth. As I told earlier, all the labeling preferably to one side. To avoid crisscross, we can do a few to this side also. So this is the buccal cavity. Here is the pharynx. This is esophagus or food pipe. Stomach. Pancreas, large intestine. Actually, this part of large intestine is called a colon. Okay. Small intestine, rectum, and anus. This part we have liver and gallbladder. Okay, so now let us see how the food is passing through the system. The food we are taking in, it is through the mouth. It reaches the buccal cavity. Inside the buccal cavity we have teeth and tongue. Then the food will come down to the pharynx. It will come to the esophagus, will enter into the stomach. Now, when it is coming here, it is not that directly the food is entering into the stomach. There is a kind of muscle called a sphincter muscle. Sphincter muscle. Sphincter muscle is something which can contract and relax. It's kind of elastic. Okay, contract and relax. So it will be pushing the food little by little. It will dilate, leave some food inside the stomach, again contract. After some time, again dilate, leave some food inside the stomach, contract. Like that, little by little food will be given to the stomach. The same way, when it is coming out of the stomach to the small intestine, here itself the small intestine is starting. This part of small intestine is called a duodenum. It is small intestine only, but it has got another name. Actually, small intestine has got three parts: duodenum, jejunum, ileum. You need not study. It is duodenum is this part where it is opening. Here also another sphincter muscle is there to control the movement of food. Again, here one sphincter muscle is there controlling the entrance of pancreatic as well as secretion from the liver. Then anal sphincter. Anus also, it is contracted. Only at the time of defecation or excretion we dilate it. Again it will contract. Hope you got an idea about sphincter muscles. Okay, so they are actually regulating the movement of food. So it will come to the small intestine and here all the secretions will be mixing with it. So this is the diagram of human digestive system. Now we have to learn how come the digestion is happening. When we talk about digestion, it includes two processes. One is physical process, one is chemical process. Physical process means what? Physically breaking it down. Okay, for example, if I have a, imagine I have a lump of sugar. I am breaking it into powder sugar. That is physical breakdown. But if I am adding some chemical onto the sugar so that I am changing the structure of the sugar or making it into simple substances, that is the chemical part of it. Who will do the chemical part of it? The enzymes will do it. Okay, so every part of the stomach, these two can happen. So especially when the food is taken inside the mouth, what do? We chew the food. Why are we chewing the food? To crush the food. Crushing means what? Physical breakdown. There we are not converting starch into anything else or protein into anything else. We are just crushing the food. That's a physical process. Then the secretions in the mouth can start digestion. There comes the chemical process. When we are studying digestion process, we are mainly considering three components of food and their digestion. The major components: the starch, protein and fat. So we are going to study in detail the digestion of starch, protein and fat. Okay, so now based on this diagram, we will learn different parts what is happening. Once the food is crushed by the teeth, it will be mixed with the saliva. We know that there is a moist secretion in our mouth that is called a saliva. That is secreted by 3 pairs of salivary glands present in our mouth. Very recently, another pair of salivary gland has been found. Okay, so this on both sides of the cheek we have parotid glands. Under the tongue we have sublingual, and here we have the submaxillary. So 3 pairs, you need not worry about the names, 3 pairs of salivary glands are there. These 3 pairs of salivary glands pour their secretion. What is their secretion? Saliva into the mouth. That is why always we have saliva inside the mouth to keep it moist. But we know when we are eating food, or when we are thinking about some food we like, or when we get the smell of the food, or we see the picture of food, the salivation is more. Why? Because it's a reflex action. Our body is preparing to digest the food which is supposed to come in now. Okay, so the food that we contain, as I told, 3 components we are discussing: starch, protein and fat. Out of this, starch digestion starts in the mouth itself, but protein and fat untouched. When we are chewing the food, food gets mixed with the saliva, and the saliva contains an enzyme called a salivary amylase. I am going to write all the enzymes in red color and I am numbering, because there are so many enzymes involved in human digestion, but you are studying only 4. So I will number them. Very important with the equation you have to learn. So starch is converted in the presence of salivary amylase enzyme. Only enzymes can break down into simpler form. In which form? Sugar. Some children will write glucose, but that is wrong. If you write glucose, it's wrong, because glucose is the final product. In the mouth only it is becoming sugar. More digestion to happen. Okay. So sugar, or if you can remember, the name of the sugar is maltose. Okay. That also not complete all starch. Only 30% of the starch will be digested. Because just think, how many of you are bothered to chew the food properly? We hardly do that, right? Only 30% of the starch will be digested into sugar inside the mouth. Now, the partly digested sugar, undigested fat and protein all will go down through the pharynx to the esophagus. But when we are swallowing, the food is made in the form of a ball. It is called a bolus with the help of saliva. It's moist. And when we are swallowing, it will come to the food pipe. And I told you, epiglottis will prevent the food from entering the windpipe, so that the food will go inside the food pipe only. But once it comes inside the food pipe, it has to be pushed down. It cannot simply go or fall down by gravity. Okay, so it has to be pushed down. For that, there is a process called the peristalsis. Peristalsis means, imagine if this is the food vacuum. Food is coming from here. This part will dilate, receiving the bolus, means in the spherical form of food. Then this part will squeeze so that the food will push down, and meanwhile this part will dilate. Again that will squeeze and this part will dilate, like that. So rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the wall of the esophagus, or it is present throughout the alimentary canal, in order to push the food forward. That process is called a peristalsis. What is it? The rhythmic contraction of the alimentary canal to push the food forward is called a peristalsis. That movement is called a peristalsis. Now food will reach the stomach. It's not completely going into the stomach. Who is controlling the movement? Sphincter muscle will be allowing little by little inside the stomach. In the stomach, we have three secretions. First of all, hydrochloric acid. Second, pepsin. Third, mucus. So let us see one by one. Hydrochloric acid. The food that we eat, we are all particular that we eat only hygienic food. But still, there can be presence of some bacteria because they are not visible to our naked eye. If there is any bacterium present in the food, then hydrochloric acid will kill. Not only bacteria, all the germs will be killed by strong hydrochloric acid. Apart from that, there is one more function of hydrochloric acid. It activates the inactive form of the enzyme pepsinogen into pepsin. So we are coming across the next enzyme that we have to study, second enzyme, that is pepsin. I have numbered it 2. So what is the action of pepsin? Digest protein. So in the stomach we have only pepsin. So only protein digestion is happening or protein's digestion is starting. What happens to the salivary amylase? Its activity will stop because of this acidic condition. Only pepsin is active. So in the stomach only protein digestion is happening. Now protein will be broken down by pepsin. But we know acid is very strong. You are learning in chemistry. If some acid falls on your body, it can corrode your body or it can harm or burn your body. But the same acid we are carrying within our stomach and we are not getting affected by it. How? Because of the covering of mucus. The inner wall is covered by mucus. The mucus protects our wall of the stomach from the corroding action of hydrochloric acid. So this is an important question. The 3 secretions in the stomach and their functions. Please note down. So there are 3 secretions in the stomach. They are secreted from the glands present within the wall of the stomach called the gastric glands. And these secretions should mix with the food thoroughly. For that, again there is a physical process of mixing. Once the food reaches the stomach will show a kind of churning action. Like how your mother is kneading atta for making roti, the same way the kneading action or the movement, vigorous movement of the muscular wall of the stomach will mix all the ingredients well with the food so that the digestion will be proper. Now, after that process of digestion using pepsin, food will slowly move out of the stomach into the small intestine. The starting or beginning of the small intestine is a U-shaped structure, as I mentioned, called duodenum. In the duodenum, 2 glands are pouring their secretions. The liver, which is the largest gland in our body, and pancreas. So the liver secretes a secretion called bile. Did I write in red? No. So what does that mean? Bile is not an enzyme. Always remember, bile is not an enzyme, but it is only a secretion from the liver. So the bile coming from the liver is needed for digestion. But in our body, I told, liver has a small structure called a gallbladder. So the bile is concentrated inside the gallbladder and stored inside the gallbladder. Okay, so now the bile has got 2 functions. One, it emulsifies fat. Emulsification means breaking down of large globules into simpler molecules or small molecules. Because you know fat is actually large. Fat means what? You imagine fat means nothing but oil or lipid. Okay, so they are large globules. If they are large, enzymes cannot act on them effectively. So first they have to be broken down into small molecules. So that process is called emulsification. So bile emulsifies the large fat globules into smaller globules so that the enzymes can act efficiently. Next, it provides alkaline medium for the enzymes. Because we learned from the food is coming from the stomach, what is the condition? It's highly acidic because it was mixed with HCl. But the enzymes of the pancreas or the intestine cannot act on or cannot be effective in acidic medium. So again the food has to be made alkaline. So that function is done by liver. Okay, so these are the 2 functions of bile secreted by liver, emulsifies fat and provides alkaline medium for the enzyme. Then Secretion from pancreas also. There are many enzymes in the pancreatic juice, but you are studying only two important enzymes. One is trypsin. So trypsin again digests protein. So this is the second protein digesting enzyme we are studying. We are studying two protein digesting enzymes. One pepsin, two trypsin. Pepsin is produced in the stomach. Trypsin is produced by the pancreas. Okay. Now another enzyme produced by the pancreas is lipase. Lipase digests lipid. Lipid means fat. Okay. So fats or lipids are broken down into fatty acid and glycerol by the action of lipase enzyme. So we have four enzymes. Salivary amylase converts starch into sugar. Trypsin converts trypsin and pepsin digest protein. Lipase digests fat. Salivary amylase is secreted in the mouth. Pepsin secreted in the stomach. Trypsin secreted by the pancreas. Lipase also secreted by the pancreas. So now within the intestine, rest of the enzymes secreted by the intestine or intestinal glands will secrete enzymes. They all together will complete the digestion. So where does digestion end? Digestion ends in the small intestine. Then you must be thinking there is one more part left, large intestine. But it does not have any role in digestion. We will come to that. So the digestion starts in the mouth, ends in the small intestine. Okay. So once the digestion is finished, now what is the next step? We need to absorb all the nutrients into our body, right? We need to take up all the nutrients that we get from the food. So we will now see that. So what are the final products of digestion? Ultimately we are getting these products. This is very important. Starch ultimately becomes glucose. We are not learning the complete process. Okay, we are learning only the final products now. With the help of pancreatic enzymes and intestinal enzymes, these final products are forming. So starch ultimately becomes glucose, proteins become amino acid, and fat becomes fatty acid and glycerol. So these are the final products of digestion. Where are they forming? Within the small intestine. Now their substances have to be absorbed in. So for that, what is there? There are small finger-like projections in the wall of the small intestine. You can see here they are called villi. Singular villus, plural villi. What is their function? They increase the surface area of absorption. So how can they increase the surface area? For example, if you look at this paper, okay, it has got this much surface area, right? So if I keep it on a surface, it will occupy this much space. The same paper, if I am crumbling it and keeping, the surface area is the same, but it is occupying only less space. So that is how it increases. The folding can increase the surface area of absorption. It's not only these are the finger-like, on top of them, again minute brush border foldings are there. They are called microvilli. So there are villi on top of them. Microvilli are also present, so that if you spread out, the surface area will be very high. So that maximum absorption of food can take place. So the absorption of food is taking place in the small intestine. Now what is left? Undigested food with lot of water in it. So the undigested food and water will move to the last part, that is called the large intestine, or to be specifically to colon. So when it is moving through the colon or the large intestine, all the excess water will be reabsorbed, because we need water for our body. So the food from the undigested food material, excess water is reabsorbed in the large intestine and mucus will be secreted into it. Okay, so only with the help of mucus, it can be in the semi-solid consistency and the movement will be easier. So the functions of large intestine are absorption of excess water from the undigested food material and secreting mucus into it for the easy passage. Then the undigested food now in the semi-solid form will be coming and temporarily stored in the rectum. And at the time of defecation or during excretion, that will be removed out through the anus. So their anal sphincter is there, regulating the opening and closing of the anus. So with this, digestion is over. We learned the parts and the processes in detail, and we have 4 digestive enzymes in our body. Hope you like my video. We will meet in another video with the next life process, respiration. So please like, share and subscribe to my channel, Biology My Passion.